Maybe it's just, no, it's on. Okay, cool. I'm actually surprised that they gave me a mic, considering that I'm kind of known as the really loud one who really doesn't need it. And if you guys can't tell, I'm going to probably move this away from my face a little bit. I'm sorry. I'm Italian. It's in my nature to talk with my hands. So like Frank said, guys, my name is Stephen Hogan. You guys may know me as Hogs. I am the 10th, 11th grade boys small group leader, and it's an absolute pleasure and a blessing to be up here with you guys today. So I'm super pumped to be able to up here talk to you guys about our series Vibes. So a little fittingly, Frank gave me the topic on anger and kind of controlling that. So quick question: anyone here have their license or been able to drive yet? Raise your hand for me. All right. Have any of you guys experienced any road rage at all yet, or people who's driven in cars? Have you guys experienced road rage? So what does that look like for those people who've driven? Someone raise their hand. Let me know what it looks like. Yvette? Yeah, you. What's it look like? How about a student? Any student experience road rage at all? Anyone? No one? All right. For some of my younger students here, walking in the hallway, there's this kind of term that I've maybe coined a little bit called hallway rage. Now, you know, I'm not just Italian, but my parents are also from Long Island, so I got those long city strides in me. So when I'm walking fast. I don't like to be stuck behind anyone going slow. I don't want to be that person who's sitting there, you know, at an absolute crawl like someone with a walker going hand in hand, inch by inch. So anyone here experience hallway rage when you're stuck behind someone slow, bumping into you? Ooh, I forgot about my clicker. The important things. Anyone experience hallway rage? What's that like? What's hallway rage like? Exactly. So everyone experienced that kind of sort of rage or that little bit of frustration. We all kind of know it, and even if you don't yell at someone in the hallway when they bump into you, you feel it in your head. You can feel it in your heart. You can feel frustration build, and you can kind of feel that anger rising. But like I just said, it's not more of a rage feeling, but it's more of a frustration. And some kind of scenarios of frustration would be like, if your sister does the laundry and she shrinks your favorite pink shirt, which is why I'm wearing my white shirt today and not my pink one. Or if your step-parent reminds you that you could get grounded for the weekend if you aren't doing what you're supposed to do. You're going to get frustrated at them, not really angry. Or if there's someone in your classroom that always thinks that they're superior or better than you, even though they haven't really done anything to kind of earn that title. We get frustrated because they feel like they're above us. And why do we feel these things? Because we don't like to think of ourselves as angry. But if we're honest with ourselves, there's a difference between being mad and being frustrated. There's a difference between road rage and road frustrations. So this past couple of weeks, we've been in our Vibes series about emotions, or kind of our inside vibe. I'm not a huge fan that rhymed. I am a poet, but mine don't rhyme usually, so that's on me. And I know the term inside vibe sounds a little ridiculous or a little fishy, but it's one of these things when we're talking about keeping those vibes from controlling us. It's not letting our emotions overgrasp us and kind of control everything that we do. And one of our emotions that shows up for everyone and tries to take over is anger. So the thing about anger is that it doesn't always look the same. Sorry, I'm early on that. Sometimes anger means yelling at someone or losing your temper. It's how we normally think of anger, but sometimes it's the total opposite. Anyone here a big fan of the silent treatment? You know, when your mom or dad makes you upset, makes you angry, you just kind of sit in your room and sulk. You know, not give them the opportunity to even say a word or give them any feedback or ammunition back to fire at you. I know my small group guys know all about my silent treatment in small group when they're not giving me good answers. So anger can look a lot of different ways. And sometimes anger is justified. Sometimes anger is okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel upset. It's okay to feel a little bit of rage. And there's certain situations that we can see where anger is okay. Things where that's kind of okay is when we see injustices in the world and when we see things that we know are wrong that make us angry. So part of these things are certain groups of people who are being treated unfairly, causes that we care about that are not being taken seriously, things like racism and people who don't have clean water, like the people up in Flint, Michigan, who are still struggling with it, and people who don't take care of the planet. There's these things that are all around us all the time that we know aren't right in the world. We know that they're wrong, and it's okay for us to be angry at that. But it's not. But Jesus was the same way. Jesus was super angry. when people weren't doing the things that they were supposed to do, when people were being mistreated or not living correctly. Jesus was known for flipping tables. He'd done it a couple times, but it was in a way that he did it so that way it was building towards something positive. It was a way for him to get his point across and do it in a constructive manner. But other times, anger can be destructive, not constructive. It moves us towards regret, and it not only hurts people, but it ends up hurting ourselves as well. And what are we supposed to do about situations where our anger causes destruction instead of construction? Either way, anger is a super powerful emotion, and it's our job to not let it control us. But the question is, what do we do with our anger, and how do we keep it from being destructive? So today we're going to look into the book of James in the New Testament. James was the brother of Jesus, and when Jesus was alive and walking the earth, James actually wasn't following him. It was only until after Jesus was crucified that he came back to life that James was convinced that he was the Savior. Eventually, James became a leader in the early church and lived in Jerusalem, and he wrote this letter primarily to the Jewish Christians. It's a letter full of wisdom, and in the section we're going to look at today, James offers a principle that may sound a little too simple at first, but hang in there, stay with me, I promise you. Or two today, you can also learn a thing or two today. So these couple verses will start to change things. So in his letter, James starts by this, who's saying, "Who is wise and understanding among you?" That's James 13, verse 3:13. So we hear the word wise a lot, whether it be in literature and movies and TV show, but we're not really sure sometimes what it means. Wisdom is a lot different than smart. There are some people who are very book smart, know what they're talking about, can look at a page in a book and summarize it in a minute and know every single little detail. But wisdom is more of an experience thing. A smart person can see a red hexagon and know that's a stop sign, but someone who's wise will actually stop at the stop sign and not roll through it going 5 miles an hour. That's how you get a ticket, the more you know. But if wisdom comes from experience. When we learn things and we experience things, we're able to kind of take those experiences from our lives and change them into our personalities and help us be better and get out of situations. So here's what James has to say about after his take on wisdom. He says, "Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in humanity that comes from wisdom." So James is making a connection here. He's saying that wise people are humble. And what does humility look like? Well, humility is something that can be tough because a lot of times we're really proud of our accomplishments. We're proud of the things that we're able to do. But true humility can look like knowing that you're not an exception to the rules, or you don't think that the world revolves around you and your desires. It's understanding that you're not the center of the universe. You're not going to get everything that you wanted, and that's okay. Another thing is about wisdom is you don't think that you deserve better treatment than everyone else, and you don't see everyone else as a means to an end that you want. So James is saying that wise people don't do these things. He's saying that wise people are able to humble themselves and be righteous before people and understand that they're not the most important person. They don't deserve better just because they're wise, or they're not the center of the universe because they've seen more things or experienced more things. James continues in verse 3 and 14 saying, "But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth." So the word harbor there basically means to hold on or to grasp onto it. So if you hold on to anger and let it just sit inside you and stick around you, it'll start to eat you up. So you can't hold on to the stuff that makes you anger or that gives you pain, or you have to let this stuff out. You have to bring it into the bright of the day. You can't deny the anger. You can't deny the way it feels. You have to call it out. You can't pretend to be fine. You have to let it out. Next, James says, "For where you have envy and self-ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice." So let's say in a different way, because I know that's a little tough. So when pride or arrogance gets lodged inside of us, it comes out in our actions. Not exactly great news, sorry, but he doesn't leave us hanging. A couple verses later, James says, "What causes fights and quarrels among you?" So, real fast, quarrels and fights, different kind of things that can be brought up. So among you guys, what quarrels in your household or at school or with your friends, what causes you guys to argue? What causes you guys to get mad at each other? Kind of, start a deeper, harder conversation. Yeah. Did you have your hand raised? Oh, no worries. No, I know, guys. I've been there. So, oh, yeah, exactly. Sometimes we have younger or older siblings that won't stop being annoying, and that kind of gets on our nerves. Sometimes we have parents with unrealistic rules where we think that, oh, I'm this age, I can do whatever I want. But, you know, sometimes it's that your friends, something simple, like your friends don't text you back, and that gets you frustrated because all you want to do is just hang out with them. Sometimes it acts like a parent where they act like they always right. Sometimes it's something even sillier, like people who have just obnoxious social media, where you just think it's whatever. Like I don't need to have this in my life. We all have an answer from outside of us that causes problems among us, but James isn't buying any of it. He answers his own questions by saying, "Don't they come from your desires that battle within you?" In other words, your mom and your dad may drive you crazy, and your little brother may be annoying. But what causes the arguments? It's not them. It's not the things that they're doing. It's you. More specifically, it's what's inside of you. And this is a big deal. Because as long as we think that the problem is someone else's, their behavior, their character, their mistakes, we will never deal with the anger problem that is inside of us. So whenever we put the blame on someone else or we always make it someone else's problems, we're not dealing with the real situation, that the anger and that pain is inside of us. Disagree with me, which is okay. I'm not perfect. It's okay. You can disagree with me. But maybe you feel like the things that you want are the things that you have to be earned. Things like freedom, respect, trust, responsibility. And when you don't get these things that you feel like you've earned, it doesn't seem fair. And honestly, you're right. But James isn't talking about what's fair and what isn't. He's saying that if you want to get to the root of your frustration and anger, you need to be willing to admit that the problem is inside of you. The problem is when you don't get what you think you deserve. So what do we do? What do we do? Well, we have to change the script. We have to rewrite our story. We have to figure out what parts don't work and what parts do work and put that into our lives and implement it. When other people aren't acting like we think they should, or we aren't getting what we want or we think we deserve, we have to change what we say. Instead of saying, he's being selfish, she's being annoying, they're being rude. Instead, we can say, you know what the problem is? I'm not getting what I want or I think I deserve. I understand this is a little hard. I understand this might sound a little rude or confusing. But I'm telling you, when you start doing this, relationships change. Your frustration level changes. Your anger changes. Why? Because you're no longer looking into other people as a reason for you to feel the way that you feel. As long as you are looking to other people as the reason for feeling the way you do, other people have control of your emotions. On the other hand, when you start admitting that the problem is that you're not getting what you want, you get control back. And isn't that what we all want when it comes to our emotions? We want control. I want to be able to feel how I want to feel. I don't want any of you to be able to control my emotions on how I'm feeling. It doesn't matter my circumstances or my situations. As long as I'm controlling my own emotions, I'm the head of the ship. So James is making the point here that as long as you think the problem is outside of you and that it's someone else's fault, you will feel like you will get a free pass to act however you want. Why? Because you can say that you didn't do anything wrong. You can say that, oh, my little brother made me do this, or my mom told me to do it this way, or they made me say that, or they left me no choice. But what James is saying is, no. If you did that thing or said that thing while you were angry, mean or hurtful, because it was inside of you to do those things. Of course, there are circumstances that should upset you, like I said earlier. Like when you're being treated unfairly by a sibling or friend, or by a parent, or you feel like, the situation is somewhat out of your control. But imagine, if in the middle of feeling your anger, your frustration, or your rage, you were able to say, part of the problem, not the whole problem, but part of it is that I'm not getting what I want. Just be willing to say that out loud helps you take time to keep from yourself from being controlled by anger and frustration. Owning what you can own in the problem keeps your anger and frustration from driving you and owning you. And no matter what or who you are, that's a good thing. So, here's my question for you guys today. What's your relationship with anger? Do you control it or is it to control you? If you were to ask a coach, your mom, dad, stepbrother, teammates, classmates, friends, teachers, what would they say about you? Would they say that your anger controls you or that you control your anger? Because if your anger is controlling you in any of those relationships, then it's controlling way too much. And the only way to beat it, according to James, is with humility. And humility says, it's not all my fault, but I'm going to do my part of it and own that part. And my part has to do with me not getting what I want to. So when you feel these angers, these emotions, this anger, frustration, or rage, or whatever you want to call it, rising up in yourself, when you're in that disagreement with a parent, step-parent, coach, or friend, ask yourself, what am I not getting that is causing this anger? Because even if you aren't the whole problem, humility means recognizing that you are a part of the problem. And when you learn how to recognize that, the emotion of anger begins to lessen its control over you. Now, the good news is that for those of us who are following Jesus, we follow someone who has led this way. Jesus said no to getting his way. In fact, the Apostle Paul wrote about this in the very thing when he talked about Jesus. In Philippians 2, verses 6 through 7, Paul says, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. Now, Jesus had every right to get his own way, but he didn't. He was humble. He was selfless. He wasn't angry. He gave up on what he wanted so that he could know how valuable we were in God's sight. Paul starts his passage about Jesus and his humility by saying, therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any sharing in spirit, and any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love. Did you catch that? He tells us to be like Christ. And then he tells us what Christ is like. Humble, when he had every reason not to be. Loving, when the world was out to get him. Jesus surrendered his way when he could have easily fought for it. So following the example of Jesus is how we keep anger from controlling us. Think of it this way. Because of Jesus, anger doesn't have to be the boss of you. Anger and pain doesn't get to control who you are. I really believe that following Jesus will make your life better. I really do. It has for me, for all the other small group leaders here, for everyone else who's accepted it. They can attest to that. They can talk to you about it. We can have conversations about you saying how much it has improved all of our lives. Because when you follow Jesus, he will nudge you away from that self-centeredness, arrogance, and pride and move you towards humility and love for others. And as that happens, you will find the anger no longer has the hold on you like it did before. And less powerful anger is a win for everyone. So now as I wrap up, I just want you to begin imagining what your life would look like if anger didn't control you. None of us would get this right completely all the time. I know I don't. But as you discuss this with your small group, process some of the ways you can take some steps in the right direction. In your personal circumstances, what would it look like for you to choose wisdom and humility over anger? Now, if you guys just wouldn't mind just praying with me real fast, and then we're going to break up into small groups. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for this day and thank you for this opportunity to be able to plant seeds, Lord. I pray that my words that I said here today were quickly forgotten, but that your truth lingers in all of our hearts, Lord. Lord, I pray that you're able to see our anger and we're able to get a better control of it and just see that this anger, this unjust, this frustration, this rage, this anger isn't what you want, Lord. I pray that you humble our hearts and allow us to look towards you and that you can guide us, Lord, to be more humble and to be able to live more like you. I thank you so much for this precious day and for your precious sacrifice, Lord, and I just ask that you continue to work in all of us. In your mighty name we pray. Amen. Well, all right, guys. That's all I have for you today. So we're going to break out into small groups now. If you guys are new here, please go with your friends. Follow them to small groups. If you have any questions, ask the small group leaders on where your room is, and let's hope we have some great conversations there today. My friend, you test my patience. Don't you just push me out now. You got me into this